everybody. It is Heidi Kaizen at Hen and Chick Studio. Come on in, Jamie. Join me this morning. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well. How are you?
We are good. We are on week 3 of our Sunday Best Sew Along.
We are, yeah. And hopefully we want to know how you're doing this morning, whether you're sewing along with us or just watching our videos and getting some tips and tricks, because each week we've covered a different topic, not new to the sewing tips and tricks, but every project offers different opportunities to give different tips.
Absolutely. So let's start from the very beginning.
Oh, yes.
All right. So how we're doing this sew along is that we picked a pattern. We picked Dayflower, which is this quilt right here in front of us. It's also the quilt on the right here on the book, Sunday Best Quilts. Great pattern, lots of opportunity for a lot of different things. So if you want to participate in the actual sew along and have a chance for winning some prizes at the end, you do need to have a copy of the book.
Right.
And so this is Sunday Best Quilts.
And maybe you want to note too that this book has gone
out of print.
Out of print.
Out of print.
Yes.
And so yes, and so we do still have copies. We love this book. You and I both know we could talk quite a bit
exclusively about that book.
About the book, because we have 3 projects that are in there. There's Dayflower, which you're seeing here. We love Pier 44 over here. And I just have the little corner back here of House and Home. It's Sweet Confetti is the name of the pattern. And so we have kits for all of those projects because it is a great book. And we know there's other projects in the book that would be equally fun to make. Okay, so if you would like a copy of the book, you can certainly order it. The information, of course, is on the computer. But if you, how we're doing this, our sew along, is that simply that if you want to join us for our weekly videos, which are free, you're going to learn something that you can apply
even whether or not you're doing this particular sew along with us. Our whole idea is to inspire you to do something maybe, and we've loved seeing in our creative community the different ways people are doing it, but maybe to inspire you to try something different or new.
That's correct.
And I think so. Week 1, we talked about selection,
fabric selection.
Week 2, we talked about cutting. Week 3,
we're going to do piecing and to give you some piecing tips.
And what I want to talk about, I'm going to highlight this because you probably won't do it. We're going to go a little bit further with a different project that the tips are transferable.
Correct.
And I think that's why we're kind of trying to do it.
Yeah, absolutely. There's so many opportunities to learn different tips, and again, apply it to different projects. So if that's what you walk away from this whole experience with, then great. And then we'll be back next Thursday with the final segment to talk about finishing quilts. And I was saying to the girls this morning, I got a lot of cutting and sewing to do if I'm going to have the top done by next Thursday. Not making any promises on that.
Okay, but also let's tell them, because if you are participating, we're giving you longer on this one because it is a bit larger project. So if Heidi doesn't have her top together, or if you don't have your top together by next week, not a problem.
I believe the deadline is April 13th.
Yep, it's written on the paper.
Yes, April 13th.
To make sure.
April 13th is what is happening. That's where you'll upload. That link is already on the Sunday Best Sew Along page that we have. So again,
so you have time.
Yep, and then there'll be some awards. Okay, so Dayflower, we do have it in the original colorway. We're using the Marlis blue and goldish colors in our particular project. So let's do a little set change. So we have some space here. Okay, and
I think the girls were we were able to put up the, if you haven't seen the Marlis, the coloring of that one yet, that one is on there.
Yeah, and if only the camera could show what's off camera. I just have to let you know that it's spring break. So both Goldie and Virginia are here helping behind the scenes, and we have Lucy today. And Lucy has made some appearances before.
And if you don't know who Lucy is
4-legged
friend.
Yes, what is she? She is a blue heeler. Thank you. And she is very comfortable right now on the side of the camera over here. Okay, so let's get, I'm going to just move this stuff off the way so we're out of the All right, and move in my little box of goodies. It's actually your box.
But you're
your
using
box,
it for
but
goodies.
I have used. Okay, so today we're just talking a lot about the triangles. And then did I end up leaving the tape, my open one? No,
Yep.
there it is. Okay, I ended.
Can I grab the quote to show it? What the inspiration of this is in the Dayflower, so that if they haven't seen it before, is what we call the background or the connecting pieces. Mm-hmm. So these little triangles that are running. Am I going the right direction?
Yep.
Okay. That's what the whole segment basically is about.
Is talking about triangles and those connecting triangles. It's what really makes a difference. Like if you had 3 yards of a I'll say that background, that connecting piece, mm-hmm. You can use all of your scraps at home. That's what's the beauty of this particular project. That's one of the reasons why we picked it. Mm-hmm. It's a great scrap buster, if you want to call it that. Okay, so when I was doing some piecing, and I got to get all my pieces here. Where did I put the little guys?
Are they hiding?
Are they hiding?
I'm hiding. Oh
no, they're underneath here. They're underneath here. Sorry, I just had not pulled the pile apart properly. Okay, so just want to talk a little bit about about piecing instructions here. So this, there is a center unit that is in the block. One of the things that when we talk about piecing and needing a perfect 1/4 of an inch seam, this is the perfect unit to perfect your 1/4 of an inch on, because you can very easily, the math works out so that you know that you are measuring your pieces correctly. Mm-hmm. If you haven't ever checked your 1/4 inch seam, I strongly encourage it. Some machines automatically go to a 1/4 of an inch. Some you have to adjust. I mean, there's all sorts of different machines.
And even if it's
are
automatic,
different.
You still might want to double check to make sure it truly is, because some machines have where you can adjust it like that tiny 1/10 of a centimeter or whatever it is.
But this question came up last week with a couple of new beginners, new quilters,
which we love,
and we love that. So it's a great opportunity to re-emphasize. So when I piece these pieces together, right? I've already pieced 2 pieces together, and then I go back through and I put the 3rd one on, right? So I end up with this unit. This is the unit I end up with, okay? And maybe Jamie, yes, maybe you can. And so the instructions, and I have my photocopy of this right here, and I only make a photocopy so that I can write on it and not ruin the book. You cannot make a photocopy and give it to your friends or anything like that, okay? But I want to have you note that in this unit, making 1 unit, she does have arrows that are telling you to press the seams out, right? But when I was doing this and I thought how dark my fabric was, I did evaluate, would it make a difference in which direction I pieced? Sometimes that is really important, and absolutely 100% follow the arrows on the pattern, or you're going to end up with a lot of bulk. But what I noticed was, and Jamie, I don't know if you can go back maybe or show here,
I'm going to hold it up
that this navy square in the middle is not going to touch any other seams. So I was okay pressing the seams toward the dark.
So let me explain this again, because I know that we do have some people even that have sewn some quilts that may not understand what these arrows are. So I can come up a little bit closer. It's the pressing instructions, basically. And what Heidi's saying is she evaluated this to come to the next step to see if she needed to match seams. And because she didn't need to, it worked out okay.
I felt it was better for the end product not to have any, if I didn't want to have any shadowing, like, I'm going to exaggerate, but if I were to have the blue underneath a light color, you could create what they refer to as shadowing. So anyway, so let's talk about how I press these, okay? So here's my unit. And I think a natural reaction is that people want to start at the bottom. Oh, yes, grab the iron. That people want to.
And don't worry, the iron's not on.
Yeah, the iron's not on, so I'm not going to burn myself. But I think naturally people think, oh, I'm going to lay this down and I'm going to start pressing. That is not the way I recommend or the way I do it. So I like to put the piece on top that I'm going to press towards. Okay.
Say that one more time.
I'm going to put the piece on the top that I'm going to press towards. So I want my seam to go toward that blue. So if I put it down, put the iron on top, the iron's not really hot at the moment, so I can't, so press it. I'm setting the seam as I'm doing this right now. Okay, I love a good burst of steam. I give a little bit burst of steam, okay, right? And then I pick it up and I gently open it up. And now with the tip of my iron, we press, not iron. If you're ironing a men's shirt, okay? If you're pressing a quilt, right? Okay, so I take the tip of the iron, and now this seam, if you want to say, is hot, and I am double checking that seam is going in toward that blue. And then it very nicely, let me grab one that's done, it very nicely has both going toward the center, right? And so that is just a little, I'll say, a pressing tip that, again, set your seam. If I had tried to press from the top, my seams on the back might not have gone the direction I wanted, as well as I have seen where you end up with like a lip, like a funny little, like an excess amount of fabric sitting right there. And I think, you know what I mean, right? And we don't want that. We want everything to be as flat as possible.
I'll show that. So what she's talking about again, because we know we have all stages here, so we want to make sure we cover everybody, is that right here, and I can't get it to focus on me. It wants to focus on you, Heidi. Yeah. Okay, there we go. So these seams right here are nice and flat. So if I look at it this way, see how it's flat versus, see if I can do it looking through the camera, something where it's raised up a bit. Mm-hmm. That's what she's referring to.
And again, we want that to be as flat as possible. Okay, so that's tip number one when it comes to pressing. So those are my center units, right? Okay, now when we are adding squares on to the end, so critical that you're sewing that diagonal line very specifically. We're going to talk in a minute about actually drawing a line on, because I did that in another project, but these are small, right? Okay, so your first thought is, I can just do it.
Eyeball it.
I can eyeball it. There you go. I can guarantee you will not. You'll have bows, you'll have curves, you'll have concave, convex, whatever. You're going to have everything you don't want. And this is where there are several tools. And here, we'll hold this one up. I'm going to show this one first. So this is the diagonal seam tape from Cluck Cluck Sew. And it is a great product that is available, $7.50. And it literally is like a roll of tape, okay? And so do you want to take it over there and show it again? Because that was helpful, I think. And you literally put it down on your sewing machine. And so you can show them what it looks like. So I would line up the red line with my needle.
Let's see if we get it. There we go.
And then I would bring it straight out from the needle toward me, right? So there's 3 lines, very, very helpful. So now, and can we lay it down? Just put some tape on it. Put some tape right on it.
And let me put the
Okay,
camera
I'm going
on.
to just put there like that. Okay.
Pretend that's our sewing machine.
There's our sewing machine, right? So when I lay this piece down, I literally can start the point in at the sewing machine, and there's enough room on the bed of my sewing machine that I can actually see this other end of the line. So I can then, as I move it underneath the sewing machine, literally foul it. And
so the tip, Heidi, the point of your triangle is staying on the red.
That's right. And so then I did not have to actually mark every one of those. And when you're sewing as many as we are for this project, the more we can speed that process up, the better. Now, the thing that is important when you're doing a square like this is that line is completely accurate, because this project is not set up to trim. And I can't emphasize that enough. If you start sewing in some wackiness kind of thing, if you start trimming these units after they're cut, your block is going to be completely off.
And Heidi, explain what you mean by trimming the unit.
So somebody might say, like, I'm going to press this open. I'm going to just, I'll do it wrongly.
Yeah.
Okay. And like, it's not like it's over. Well, no problem. They're like, you know what? I'll trim 1/8 of an inch off the side of my rectangle, or, this kind of thing. No. You can't do anything like that in this project. You can't do any trimming, or your entire block won't go together. Okay. And so that is so important. And so I did these. Let's see, I guess like these, because these are already folded back and cut. Okay, so that's the last step. So when I go to press these, let me go, I got it open, right? I set the seam. What that's doing is that steam is helping meld all of everything together, right? So I set that seam on this way, and then with the tip of my iron and I take that triangle and I bring it right back to these edges. I use the bottom 2 layers as my plan, as my pattern, so that I then with the tip of my iron am opening this up. So that looks exactly the same. If there's nothing different from the bottom. Does that make sense? Okay. All right. So then you go back and you trim those to 1/4 of an inch to get rid of the bulk. Okay.
So this portion here is not remaining.
You're right. Cut that off.
That you're coming back and trimming. That's what.
Correct. Why would you want to cut that off, Jamie? Okay, I've got it opened up. I think, it's pressed open. Really, is there a big deal?
I think there is a big deal.
It's bulk. That's 3 layers of fabric.
And when you're quilting, to finish it is when it starts to really matter. But when you're adjoining your pieces together, imagine.
It's just everything is getting thicker.
That'd be 6 layers you're sewing through.
That's right. So that's a little tip. Press it open. Make sure you use the bottom as the pattern, because the only thing that's going to get trimmed is technically you're going to trim the 1/4 inch seam allowance. That's it. Okay. That is all you're going to do. Okay. So, I made notes this morning because I was like, I'll forget something. Yes, and they cut the 1/4 inch triangle to do. So just for funsies.
Okay.
Just for funsies. So the pattern is starting to look like this. Just fold that over.
Yep.
Just fold that over. Because then that will come together. Excuse me. And let's see. Then we go another round, right? This way.
Oops.
No, we're gonna get it. So as you can see now, you might think, well, man, her rectangles are off. Remember, I got to take 1/4 inch seam allowances in here, and that will bring it back down. It's going to be fun, Jamie.
It is. I
get excited when I start to see things coming together that would go this way. I don't have all the pieces here, but here.
That's okay. It starts to give them the idea of what you're doing. And the pattern is such on this, that looks really pretty, Heidi.
I bet it does.
It does look really pretty. And the pattern on this one, I think, is set up so that you can do it, you can do one block at a time.
Correct.
Or you can do your mass chain piecing type.
And my goal is, and just this is where my head is going already, is I will have all of the units ready. And then I like to lay them all out. So I'll literally lay them on top of each other. So then I would like the next block, when I get this block how I want it, before I've pieced it together,
each block
then I would lay another one on top, and I would put 4 more, and so that I make sure that I have them, because I would hate to get to the end. This is always my fear. And then I'd have all this pattern all in the same spot. Yeah. And I hate that. Yeah. Even when it's scrappy, I know, but it's just that's my own little thing. So that is where we're going with this one. Yep. Okay. So now I'm going to just move these over a little bit. We'll take these back home and be sewing this weekend.
So as Heidi's cleaning that one up, if you have any questions of anything that we have shown you,
please ask.
Make sure that you do ask. Again, you can type your comments and we'll look and see them. If we can't get them answered today, we'll get back to you, or on the live, we'll get back to you. If you have further questions, certainly if you're local, stop in the store. We'll be happy to answer your questions, or give us a call.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Okay, now we're going to just sort of shift a little bit. I brought some more props and things. So in this particular project, this is a brand new kit that we have. It's called Forget Me Not All Natural, and it's a free downloadable pattern.
Adorable.
Yeah, I do think it's adorable. Let's hold the whole thing up. Goldie, I don't think it's there, so you don't have to. And it is just this cute little pattern. The kit actually includes the backing fabric in this particular case. It's adorable, right? But why I picked it was that I hear all of the time, and I know you do too, we do here at the store, is that triangle squares, they're hard.
Oh yeah, but there's a point. I can't do a point.
Yeah, a point. And so there's so many different methods, right? So what I liked about this method was that you took 2 squares and you sewed them together, draw a diagonal line with a pencil, and then you sew 1/4 of an inch on each side. Very typical method, right? Very, very typical method. And let me just set this down over there, get that out of the way. And you end up then with this unit. This is a triangle square unit. So basically we drew a line on one side, sewed, and so you end up with 2 triangle squares that look exactly the same. Some people call them half square triangles. There's different terminology. I do call them triangle squares. That's just because after 17 years of writing instructions, that's what I call them, right? Because it's 2 triangles that make a square.
Highly logical.
Logical. Okay, we could get into a lot of math. I don't wanna lose anybody here. But there are instructions where you, again, have to be exact because we are not trimming. So, for example, this we wanted to finish at a 4-inch square. So if I had 2 4 7/8 inch, basically you add that 7/8 inch, and squares and cut them down, I would end up with the 2 triangle squares, and I would not trim a thing, right? So in this particular project, it calls for 5-inch squares is what it's calling, and you are not cutting those down. So it gives you an opportunity to try some things and to practice and to feel like you're still going to be super accurate, okay? So we're going to go with this one. This one does require trimming. It's super important, okay? So the kit allows for literally, there's excess triangle squares, right? Okay. And so again, you think, they look pretty good, Jamie, don't you think?
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
I bet.
Maybe you don't even need to trim, Heidi.
I don't even need to trim. I'm fine. I don't need to trim. Well, let me tell you, you start putting those side by side, and all of a sudden you're like, oh, can you see this? That this, it's an eighth, that's a solid 1/8 of an inch off. That's a solid 1/8 of an inch. And again, you could fudge it, mush it, wing it. What words do we want to put in there?
Pull it.
And pull it.
Stretch.
Shove
all
it.
sorts of stuff.
All sorts of things. But why, right? Especially when you have tools like the mini stripology ruler. Okay, so the mini stripology ruler, we've been talking about the stripology rulers last week in the cutting. Jamie, you used the XL, which is the biggest one. You could do what I'm doing on an XL. It's just a lot bigger ruler to move around. And so this is one of the reasons why it is nice to have more than one ruler. If you're not familiar with the stripology ruler, it does have like slots in here, and going to be able to put your rotary cutter in there. I love this one because, of course, it has, I guess I could go this way, all the measurements for squares. So can you see it there? All right.
And you can also kind of see on this, there's the black squares. So those are your 1/2 inch. And then you can turn it that's the other way. The white ones, I can't see and do it all at the same time. But you can see there's 2 different squares.
Yep.
White and black.
Yep. Okay. So I'm going to lay this down here, Jamie. Can you, which way would be easier? Is this okay if I do it right here?
Yep, but let me do this.
Okay. You get where you need to. We want to make sure everybody can see what we're doing. Okay, so here I have this this triangle square, and I'm trying to figure out how I am going to trim it up. I need it to be 4.5 inches, and when I've got the 4.5, so 4.5 is right here, 4.5 is right there, 4.5, 4.5. I can see it in all four corners. So I'm looking to see if I have fabric.
Sorry.
No, you're under all of those lines, all right? So I'm looking to see. I'm also, because I have a diagonal seam, I'm looking at this dashed line to see if it lines up with my seam right here in the gutter. So 4.5, 4.5, I've got those all covered. I have this line going here, okay?
And so one thing, what I want to be clear here, we're not using the stripes on the table.
No, not even. In
No,
fact,
it's
it's sort of like I'd like to flip it over and not have it. So when I'm using this, and we're working with the camera here too, you get it into the slot and trim. And I'm going to go from the other direction just because of the camera angle here. Otherwise,
Which is, it's helpful too, because you can see she's
Yep,
sliding into
I
that
can.
4.5 inch slot.
so there's no problem. I can in this particular way. And you're going to maybe be amazed. I'm only pulling off a little bit, but I think I took a photo, and maybe I'll try to post it later today, of all my little pieces. It was a pile. It was amazing.
And it makes a huge difference when you're matching it.
Yep. So now I know that this side and this side are accurate. Okay. I turn my ruler and I line up the 4.5 line at the top,
So
4.5
if you
inch.
can't see it clearly, this is her 4.5
Yep.
inch line
And
there.
I'm lining it up here at the bottom. I'm now making sure that the diagonal line going this direction is lined up with the diagonal line. And I can see there's excess fabric over here, very little over there. Okay, so once again, into the slot, cut, into the slot, cut. And again, look at, I'm only pulling off but a little bit, but now my
Have a very nice.
my square is truly square. Okay, so so a couple other little tips I wanted to share, Jamie, because we talk about these things, and since I had the opportunity this morning, I created a little chain. Okay, so a couple of things I wanted to show you. Number one, this is what I refer to as a starter strip. I have a starter strip that always is going underneath my sewing machine so that I don't get bird nests with my sewing.
And
Okay?
Heidi, maybe somebody hasn't heard what I know.
A starter
what-
strip?
Yeah, well, or bird's nest.
A
What are
bird's
you
nest.
referring
Oh,
to?
it's when
because
your
some people
it's-
don't maybe
Yes,
know that.
it's when your thread goes underneath your sewing machine and goes little, and then you get the big bird's nest underneath there. It'd be like a bird that took all of your thread and made a nest with it. It's just that it's underneath
your
and it's a
fabric.
mess, right?
Especially when you're doing half square triangles.
Okay, I'm also chain piecing. Okay, so what am I doing when I'm chain piecing? I am literally have very little thread between the pieces. So I'm conserving on thread, I'm saving on time, and I'm literally sewing from one to the other. Now I do want you to notice, yes, I did make a mistake this morning and did not catch, and I at that point was running out of time, that my seam flipped back, and so I would have gone back and ripped that out and fixed it, but I didn't have time.
That's okay.
Okay,
Well,
so
everybody gives grace.
yes, please give me some grace. Okay, now, so I want to show you what I did, because I ended up with extra triangle squares, right? Ended up with extra squares. And I'm like, what am I going to do with these? So I decided to put two of them together. So like one, and I'm going to put the light, and two together, match the seams, and if you flip it open this way, I'd end up with a quarter square triangle, right? Okay, so then I did.
So Heidi, can I ask, are these extra blocks that you had from
These
your
are extra.
kit when you did that?
These are extra
Okay.
from making this kit. So it's a free downloadable pattern, but it's an extra kit. Your extra pieces. These were just extra because we wanted it to be super scrappy, and so then you end up with extra.
Don't you have?
Yes. So I'm gonna show you what I did. Okay. So when I draw a line if this was a full square, I would do exactly the same, kind of thing here. And that's how I originally sewed these triangle squares together. Actually, I think Golding Virginia sewed them together. But I would use a straight ruler and line up from tip to tip. And I would draw a line with a pencil from that. A piece of sandpaper underneath helps your fabric from moving around. So that's a little tip. I just use pencil. We've got all sorts of different colored pencils if you need that. So now I have a line on the back and there, okay? So then I put my two squares together. I use my tape.
That I pulled up.
No, it's all right. That's all right. So this is where the tape is still extremely helpful. Because,
and it can stay, you don't have to take it up and down all the time.
Correct. Okay, still extremely helpful because when you go to lay this down, now your drawn line actually needs to be either on the 1/4 inch seam or on the opposite side, right? So to me, it's the black lines on the tape. So I was able to put the drawn line on a black line and then know that I am following that black line as I sew so that my sewing line ends up where it's supposed to on the red. Okay, it's just another guide, another placement. And I literally did sew down one side, did not cut them apart, and sewed back the other side. So they're actually doubly cut or sewn, excuse me. I was going to say cut because so like I literally would have to go in and cut twice. Okay, so you can see what I'm doing there.
So there's her line she drew. She sewed to a 1/4 inch of each side, which now looks like the tape, if you want to look at it that way.
Yes, it does. Looks like the tape. I'm right now, just because it's super simple and I have the scissors right here in my hand, I am cutting on the drawn line with my scissors. I would set the seam, open it up, and look,
so
I got a cute little box. Now, I have no idea, because this is not part of the pattern. I have no idea.
She's playing with her scraps that are already ready for you.
And to me, I could do the exact same thing and put it back in to a setting just like this. It would just be a little bit smaller. So I would want to, but look how cute that would look.
You'd have to, you couldn't use this exact pattern at that point.
Well,
because could you?
You would just be smaller. It'd just be your sashing strips. So you'd have to determine what size am I going to trim these all to, and then look at that. It's just so cute.
Or you could even put them together, Heidi.
Yes, you could. Yes, because you're going to end up with opposite. So I'm
here,
just
pull it
very
off of
quickly
there.
here trying to open up so you can see.
And one thing I would say is I have another project that Lucy is here. We heard her, that I am working on it was a larger piece where it was similar to Dayflower, where you're just cutting half the triangle off after you've sewn it. And I went ahead and went back and did the same thing that Heidi's doing before I cut it off, but it was larger than the small blocks. So I ended up with a whole bunch of half square triangles that are already pre-sewn for something to do.
So there you go. How's that?
That's
and
fun.
Look, I could. Now here's another whole thing I could do, Jamie. Oh, now the ideas are starting to flow. Whatever I decide to trim this down to, let's just say I trim it to 3.5. I could trim these that are left over to 3.5 and have both triangle squares and 1/4 square triangles.
The possibilities are endless now.
The possibilities are endless. Okay, so let's just review a couple things that we've talked about again so that you feel comfortable pressing with your set your seam first. Pressing. Set your seam. Open it up with the tip of your iron from the back. Open it up. Definitely use that tip. Also, 1/4 inch diagonal seam tape is great for guiding your pieces if you've got something like that. And the one other product that I do love when I'm piecing, and I did use them this morning, are my Patchwork Fine Pins. And I brought my chicken with. And my Patchwork Fine Pins are these lovely little pins that are silk. Aren't they described as silk?
Yeah.
Silk think silk heads,
Fine.
and whatever, patchwork fine. And I love them for taking a small bite when I'm trying to piece together blocks and keep things organized. And so I got my little chicken here, and he's got all my patchwork fine pins in there. So, and have we, and that, you know what, let's show that.
Okay.
This is just another product we have called Clearly Perfect Angles. Same, very similar idea to the tape. It has a little bit larger bed, place that you can do. Again, a great product from New Leaf Stitches. This is $11.77, and definitely can be used
Also available on our website, any of this stuff as we said.
has very similar
if it would help.
capabilities. Yep. All right, so I think we have covered all sorts of details today. As always, if you have any questions about what we're doing, don't hesitate. Stop by, give us a call, and until the next